Lots of people think there are things said in the Bible that aren't actually there. They're popular Christian sayings that are part of our culture, and maybe they sound like or are even inspired by the Bible, but they're not actually in it, and sometimes they even contradict the message of Scripture. Here are 4 things the Bible never said. First, God will never give you more than you can handle. This is a popular phrase. It's meant to be comforting, and rightly so, but it's not in the Bible. The New Testament warns that believers will experience troubles. Jesus says, "If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you." We can see this in the persecution of Christians for the last 2,000 years. There have been Christians all over the world who have had to endure torture and death because they chose to give their lives to Jesus. But there's something else that Jesus says. "I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart. I have overcome the world." So no, the Bible never promises that God won't give us more than we can handle, but it does give us reasons to have hope that will carry us beyond the grave. Number 2, you deserve to be happy. People spend their lifetimes looking for happiness. It's a wonderful thing, but it shouldn't be our top priority. Happiness and things that cause happiness can quickly become idols if we let them. Some self-proclaimed Christians think that religion should give them happiness, and I'm sorry to say that this just isn't true. However, the Bible does say that we should be content, which is something that's very different. The Apostle Paul said, "Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need." You see, happiness is often contingent on things that can be taken away from us. It typically depends upon circumstances, possessions, experiences, relationships, and other things. Contentment is something we can have in spite of any adverse circumstances that come our way. Number 3, follow your heart. We hear this message everywhere in our culture. The one place we won't ever find it is in the Bible. The phrase is positive, uplifting, and empowering. The only problem is the Bible teaches that the heart isn't the best source of guidance. Jeremiah 17:9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately sick. Who can understand it?" Jiminy Cricket famously sang, "Let your conscience be your guide."
Always let your conscience be your guide.
But that can be terrible advice. We'd be much better off following the Bible. Fourth, and finally, you get what you deserve. Of all 4 statements, this is probably the least biblical. We find it expressed in different ways. You reap what you sow. What goes around comes around. Your past will come back to haunt you. The chickens have come home to roost. The Bible often talks about God's grace, though. Grace, by definition, is getting a gift you don't deserve. It's also one you cannot earn. This is the very heart of the gospel message. In fact, Paul makes some astounding claims along these lines. For instance, in Romans 5, he says, "God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Thank goodness we don't get what we deserve. Now, there are a lot of sayings out there that sound upbeat and encouraging that seem to almost sound biblical, but they're not, and we need to make sure that we know the difference.